This is my quick review of The Crash by Frieda McFadden. I finished reading this book this morning and decided I wanted to make a review on my lunch break, so here I am. And before I get into the review proper, I want to tell you just a little bit about my history with Frieda McFadden so you understand my rating of this particular novel. I first was introduced to Frieda McFadden by my aunt, who recommended and said, "You've got to read this author that I started reading, and I think that you would really like her stuff." And so one night I was at my computer playing League of Legends. I said, let me just listen to something. And I searched up Frieda McFadden and found The Locked Door. So while I was playing, I started listening to The Locked Door, and by the next day at noon, I had finished. I think I listened to it in like 2 sittings. I listened for like 3 or 4 hours, and then I finished it the next day. I got so wrapped up in the story and the thriller aspect of it. I've always liked thriller movies, but it never really got into thriller books. And this was like a psychological thriller that just had me on the edge of my seat. And I was like, wow. And from there, I have experienced a lot of her work. I've listened to a lot. I've read a lot. And at this point, I pre-order all of her books. So I had The Boyfriend recently, and then I now got The Crash. So let's talk about The Crash. It's difficult to talk about this book without giving too much away. So I'm going to try my best here. And this is a non-spoiler section of the review. So like I said, I'm not going to give too many details away. But what I will say is that the story is about there are 2 main characters, but one of the main characters, Tegan, who is pregnant, is expecting a child pretty soon, but something happens which kind of puts her in a specific set of circumstances that, is she going to make it? Is she not? I don't know. Like I said, it's very difficult to give away too many details because I think that that's what really got me. The beginning of the book is what I liked the most because there were several moving parts. The story seemed to be going in one direction, and then some things happened, and I was like, "Oh, this is crazy." And this all happened very, very early on. And then the story kind of leveled off from there and just, it kind of took this one path. So it kind of went one way and then swerved another way for me, which I really liked. So the setup for this story to me was the best part of it. Now, the rest of the story, I thought it was okay. I think that for me, this is specific to me, and I think that other readers will probably feel a little bit different, especially if you have not read, if you're just getting into Frieda, or if you haven't read some of the other works that are out there that are similar to this. Now, this isn't necessarily a spoiler, but I will tell you some other books that this remind me of. For example, Misery. Stephen King's Misery. So imagine if Frieda wrote Stephen King's Misery, and that is The Crash. And, interestingly, I believe that in Stephen King's Misery, there is a crash. So there are like a lot of similar plot points and a similar setup that, kind of, I guess, maybe pays homage to that. And Frieda has done that before. She did a story that was basically her Gift of the Magi. And I think it was called The Gift. So, she's kind of made it known that she takes inspiration from other famous or stories that have come before her. Another story that The Crash is similar to is The Hole. And I forget who the author is. I believe it's an an Asian author, maybe from Korea or Japan. But I read The Hole like less than a month ago. And The Hole actually is, they made a disclaimer saying like this is based on or similar to Stephen King's Misery. So, knowing that, having read Misery, being familiar with that, and Stephen King is one of my favorite authors of all time, and then having read The Hole, and then now reading The Crash, I feel like for me it lost a little bit of its umph and just didn't stand out as much as it could have. So, and plus, I have been spoiled with a lot of Frieda stories. Frieda is known for these psychological thrillers that have these like unhinged characters with lots of twists and turns. And maybe I'm just to the point that I'm familiar with her formula. And, like I said, I've been spoiled by some of her amazing stories that this just didn't seem to hold as much power as other things that I've read, like, the Housemaid trilogy or The Teacher or The Boyfriend. I mean, The Boyfriend really got me. I thought that it was like so good. So great story. I would give it a 4 out of 5 and maybe a little bit slightly lower, honestly. I mean, the writing's not bad. It's up there. I just think that like the story itself didn't grab me and the characters didn't resonate with me as much as characters in some of her other stories. So I like this. I definitely would recommend it. If you're a Frieda fan, I mean, you have to read this and you will enjoy it. For me, it didn't hit me as much as some of her other stories did. Now, I'm going to go on to the spoiler section of this review. So if you are happy with everything I've said and you don't want to hear any more, you can stop this video now. Otherwise, you can continue on. And I'm going to get to that spoiler section in 3, 2, 1, now. As I said, there are 2 main characters in this novel. And the first one is Tegan. The second one is Polly. See, what happens is Tegan is pregnant from this unknown guy who knocked her up on this very strange night. And Tegan finds out that this guy actually gave her drugs and, essayed her. And so that's how she got pregnant. And she kind of finds this out at the beginning. She doesn't realize it until she sees the guy again and these memories come back to her. And there's this whole thing that's going down, like this guy is paying her a hush money because he doesn't want to have anything to do with the child. He's married. He has his own life. So he's going to pay hush money to Tegan, and Tegan's going to be set for life. But when she finds out that he essayed her and he's this horrible guy, then she says, I'm not doing this. I'm not signing this contract. I don't care how much money you pay me. I want you to go down. And ends up going to visit her brother one night and gets in a car crash, hence the crash. And this is at the very beginning of the book. Well, so most of the story takes place at the residence of Hank and Polly. Hank finds Tegan after the crash and takes her, puts her in his truck and takes her back to his place where she is cared for by Polly, who is his wife. Now, Polly is an ex-nurse. She lost her license or is not allowed to be a nurse anymore because of some things that she did. So we have this unhinged element, and Polly is one of the other main characters. So she's the second main character. And Polly keeps Tegan in her basement in kind of this makeshift hospital room that she, has had, and is keeping her there because Polly is infertile. She could never have a child. But she finds out that Tegan is about to give birth, and so Polly takes it upon herself to, plans to keep Tegan, deliver the baby, keep the baby, and then eventually kill Tegan. So that's kind of where the plot goes. And there are some other things that happen. I'm not going to give everything, but that's overall what's going on in the book. And so the majority of it is just that. Tegan in this basement, and Polly and Hank, and what is Polly trying to do? And there are some very surprising things, like the like Polly at one point, she tries to she's drugging her, and she goes to the store at one point and gets these ingredients to make what's called, I think, the midwife serum, and is trying to force a pregnancy. There are some strange things going on in this story, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. So in that sense, the whole Stephen King Misery, because in Misery you have an author who is taken care of by this woman, and this woman breaks the guy's ankles and isn't allowing him to leave. And the same thing is happening here. Polly isn't allowing Tegan to leave, and at one point Polly even takes a hammer and almost breaks her kneecaps. I mean, it is clear homage to Misery. There's no doubt about it. But anyways, so that's what's going on in the story if you're interested. And that is my review of The Crash by Frieda McFadden. So I would like to know what you think about the story. Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, make sure if you enjoyed this review and you want to see more from Classroom Camp, like this video, hit that subscribe button. Also, hit that notification bell so you never miss out on my future videos and reviews. Stay tuned, because I've always got some interesting, top-notch education news for you and all kinds of other educational content. If you're a teacher out there, I definitely recommend that you begin reading if you have not started your reading journey, because remember, readers are leaders. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.